Well, good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of Violence That Sports Talk. I am joined by Dara Alizadeh, who has now qualified for the Tokyo Olympics. I know when we last talked, Dara, it was going to be a challenge whether or not it was actually going to come off. You were confident that it would come off. You just needed to make sure you fine-tuned everything that you had to do, going to Florida camp and all. But before we actually get going, I have a little surprise for you. I have the president of the Bermuda Olympic Association, Ms. Judy Simons, on to congratulate you on your accomplishment. So, Madam President.
Thank you, Earl, so much. Dara, we are so thrilled for you.
Thank you so much. Wow. What a surprise.
First of all, let me congratulate you on behalf of the Bermuda Olympic Association Executive Board.
Thank you so much.
What you have gone through just to get to the qualification is beyond anybody's thought process. And we are proud of your commitment and your dedication and the sacrifice that you made. And now you're going to be representing your country. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that means so much. I personally don't see it as a sacrifice. I love doing this. It's been a long road, and I can't tell you how excited I am. And that's kind of, to put it into words is a challenge. So
the most important thing now for you is to stay safe and well, so that we get you to the Olympics.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. And I'm overjoyed. I'm a bit tired now because I've just been traveling, but it's just I over the moon about this. So, but thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Earl?
Dara, looking at what you had to go through, all the rules and regulations, getting to Brazil, getting into the hotel bubble and into the games bubble, was it what you expected before you arrived with all the restrictions that they had given you? You were reading all that stuff, making sure that you were able to follow some of those guidelines, and then once you got there, was it what you expected, or was it a little rushed off?
No, it was. Well, I guess going into it, I didn't have like a vision in mind of what I thought it was going to be. I had a very rough idea of, it's going to be very strict about movement, about scheduling, what bus you're allowed. I mean, everything was, and I give FISA, the World Rowing Body, a lot of credit, because there were so many details that we had to figure out, that they had to figure out, and that we had to play along into. So I think for once I got there, it quickly became clear what the rules were, how you did everything. You had to sign up for, dinner time, what bus you're going to go on, to when to practice, when to do this and that. So, and that fit my expectation, and I thought they did a fairly good job of it, and they had to adjust a couple things as well, like as we went along. But yeah, I guess going into it, it wasn't what I was expecting, a couple of years ago when I was really getting going. It was not quite that, but in terms of just how to run a regatta with, social distancing and cleaning everything, it was about what I expected conceptually.
What were the conditions? If I may ask, I'm assuming that where you were was the actual rowing event for the Olympics in 26. So I obviously have been there because Michelle rowed there. What was the conditions for you like that day? I mean, I know that course quite well visually anyway.
Yeah. So luckily it was not nearly as bad as Shelley's heat. So I remember her heat was like 30-mile-an-hour winds, and it was an ocean, like people flipped. So it didn't get nearly that bad. The afternoons there were windy. And what I learned about the course, having not been there before, was, so like the mornings were generally pretty good. Often the racing was a headwind. So that just, that just kind of luck of the draw in terms of what the weather brings. But the afternoons would get windier. And two things I learned. One, it doesn't take a lot of wind to get the water going. And it would, I'm just trying to imagine, a sort of a normal day in Hamilton Harbor where it's not like totally flat. Like there's a little bit of wind and like there's a bit of chop. It would be fine to go out in a boat, but in a single, it's alive. Like it's moving about. And there's just something different about the water there than a lake or like a, in terms of rowing courses, Lucerne or Linz or something like that. And then the other thing I learned was the conditions change about every 250 meters because of the mountains around it. Yeah. Like the mountain, and which were stunning, by the way. And the only regret I had of the whole trip was that we weren't allowed to go out of the hotel and see stuff. And so a tailwind in the first 250 meters would quickly turn into like a crosshead because of the way the wind would come kind of through the mountains and then it would split. And so you really had no idea what to expect in terms of your just raw speed and like what speeds you'd be seeing on the little stroke coach. So that was something I had to get used to pretty quickly. Just because we weren't allowed, normally there'd be a 2-week camp beforehand to practice on the course and do, meet everyone and just get used to it. Whereas now we had like 3 days to get there, get your boat rigged, sorted, adjusted, tuned up onto the water. And but that was just the reality of it. So the conditions were better than they were, I think, for the couple of days during the Rio Olympics.
Did them changing that last day, making everything the 2 days, did that help you settle you? Because you don't have much time to get out of your heat and then get into that final where you would have done it another day. And I guess having a chance to look at where you are to see what you have to do and all that, did them pushing it up, squeezing it all together help you through that final race, that B final?
I don't think it helped me. As in it didn't, my performance I don't think was any better because it was all kind of condensed. I think what it might have done was, to speak in sort of meta terms, a regatta is really just testing your ability to, who's done the most training, who's the rowing technique stuff, but it's also who can adapt, who can adjust to the changing whatever. And especially with COVID, it's really about who can adapt on the fly. Like, and I think earlier we had spoken about this before about like, hey, new situation about, delayed qualifier. Okay, you got to adapt this and that. And so I think it probably tested everyone to see, okay, the finals are not going to be tomorrow. They're actually going to be in 3 hours.
Right.
And so you have the semifinal on Friday morning. That was, that for me was a disappointing race, but instead of having the whole day to say, oh man, like, well, that's not great. I get off the water. I'm like, okay, all right, okay, that's done. Like, that's out of my hands now. Like, let's just go. You have to turn around, and you've got 3 hours to get some food, cool down, get the lactate out, get some food into your body. Fluids. It was like, 95 to 98 degrees there. It was really hot. It's like, it's the end of their summer there. And so it was really just like, okay, how do you recover? How do you prepare for the next one? Getting the schedule, now fit the buses into that, right? Like you got to get back to the course and you have to be on the right bus. You can't like just do your own thing. So I think that might have tested some people in a way that perhaps they might not have expected, but that's just that's within the rules that they can adjust it for. Whether this was adjusting it because I think the city of Rio de Janeiro, the mayor, said at 5 o'clock, we're not doing it. You have to be done by 5 o'clock on by today. So okay, we got to do everything how about in 30 minutes? Okay, cool. And so so I think it just probably tested people in ways that are less conventional.
Now, one of the questions on the bus ride back, did you know where you had to finish in order to qualify? Did they explain that?
From where?
What's that?
The bus ride back
to the course for the final, for the B final.
No. So I realistically, having had a disappointing semifinal, I was thinking, okay, now this doesn't help my chances really. This has gotten a little bit more difficult now. But I was not I was aware of the rule about qualification, but I was not at all in a head. I mean, first off, there was no time to be thinking about doing the calculations. Okay, if this person finishes here, and I was that has nothing to do with what I'm just trying to do as well as I can in this next race. Whether in this other event that has nothing to do with me, how they do has nothing to do with what I'm about to do, what I'm trying to do. So I didn't know really. All I knew was the higher I can finish, the more the better shot I've got. And I that just keeps it simple. That does not, you know what I mean? I am not a fan of playing games at these regattas, you know what I mean? Because I'm a big believer, just keep it simple, do your best. Don't overcomplicate it. Let let the coach.
Let the chips fall where they may. Yeah.
Let the chips fall, or none of those external things matter to what I'm about to do in the water. And so, it's not going to motivate me anymore. I'm I just want to do as well as I can, irrespective of that. So once the final had gone, and it was I probably didn't do as well as I hoped in the final either, and then I was thinking, okay, now this is the probably the worst moment of it all was because of just the stress of it, was probably finishing that race and then having to wait about 80 minutes for all the other races to come down.
Right.
Because now at that point I'm my life is in your hands. Whatever happened now, there's nothing more I can do. I've given it my all, sort of thing. And then it was just sitting there waiting for these other races to come down. And, so I watched, and I was curious to watch the A final for the men's single, just to see kind of what how people did. And that was luckily the first A final to go down.
Right.
Which now we're talking qualification spots. And so I kind of registered what the finish order there was. And then I started thinking, okay, ahead of me are, 8 people, one of whom has won the event they're going.
Right.
7 of whom are now they're also waiting to see kind of what the other results are. And at this point I started to let myself think, I was I was kind of let's just put the performances behind us. They're done, lessons learned. Then I was thinking, okay, well, I know the girl from, this country is very good. So I think she's going to finish pretty well. Then I'm starting to think okay, I'm starting to connect the dots. And it went down to the last race, because I remember, so the second to last race was the lightweight men's double. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's out, this guy's out, this guy's out. And I'm looking at my coach and I'm and he's I think we need one more. I was I was okay, I disagree with because I was trying to explain, it was it was basically 2 mad scientists saying, no, but if you think about this, and this guy gets, and weird chaos. So he said, well, listen, let's just wait till this last race. I don't think I've ever watched a race as closely as I had that one. It was the lightweight women's double coming down. And I was like, I think I would really like it if Argentina won this. I would be thrilled if I would, I will carry their boat in from them. Dinner's on me if they can just pull this one off. And they had the live stream up. They live streamed the regatta, and they had the screen up and the thing. So I'm just sitting there, kind of like, okay, it's going well. Yeah, like, come on, like, you can do it, Argentina. And then finally, last 250 meters, I run down to the dock. And it was kind of a weird moment then. They crossed the line, and I'm thinking, like, and I look at my coach, and I'm like, then basically the next, like, 24 hours were, are we sure that's the rules about the qualification? Because it was just a chaotic scene. Like, people are like, oh, is this guy out? Okay, am I in? And that's where everyone, like, and the FISA officials they're like, shut up, like, go away. We're trying to figure out the results ourselves. Right. And I'm like, grabbing him by the collar, like, what's going on? And so at that point we had thought, okay, I think I might have qualified, but I'm not sure. And I don't want to get my hopes up, but the math checks out. And, I was sending it to, like, I sent it to my girlfriend being like, I'm going to write all this down, and does it make sense to you? I was like, and people were like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, Argentina's out and this guy is this. And so, yeah. And so we were all kind of sitting there like, I think we're good, but I was like, until that letter, comes up, or the official letter from FISA, I am not, let's, do not count your chickens, sort of thing. And so, yeah. So at that point, a FISA official who I had gotten to know sort of, the next day said, hey, we've looked through the results. I think you're going to Tokyo, like, unofficially, but I think you're going. And I said, sir, I really appreciate that, but until I have it in writing, I don't, like, just...
Because that was our conversation yesterday.
Yes, literally. Like, yeah. And so, so that was the last 72 hours of mine that I've just been kind of waiting for, like, just like, are we sure this is the rule? And everyone's telling me, yes, we've told you 1,000 times this is what the rule is. I'm like, yeah, but are you sure that's the rule? Like, could it mean this? And it's like, no, it doesn't mean that. It is what you think it means. And so that was just my paranoid mind.
Yeah.
Well, it is official.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And we have the letter.
Exactly.
So the BOA have the letter, know, has it set in that your dream of going to an Olympics as a rower, has that set in?
It is in the process of setting in. It was sort of a weird 48 hours after the last race had finished, because we were really just stuck because the event was still technically live in terms of, like, what you've signed up for to be in the COVID bubble and stuff. Right. So I was just in my hotel, and that you can't go to any of the shared spaces in the hotel, and so I'm just in my hotel room, like, doing some schoolwork and, like, watching Netflix and stuff. And it was not only with the uncertainty, but also at the time, but also it wasn't quite what I had envisioned. I had a great, training up to it. I had a fantastic Florida camp, and I was like, I am going to smash this, I'm like, really. And I felt, and I just didn't quite get to what I was doing in practice. And I think just, I have a process-oriented mindset, like, focus on the process, do the fundamentals right, and the result will sort of take care of itself. And there was an element to where I was like, I didn't quite get the, you cross the finish line, you're like, that was the best race, or like, that was the qualifying race that I wanted. So I didn't have that moment. And that was like kind of the vision in my head for the last, like, 2 years, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm going to get this. And like, this is what like and so like that not happening, but then qualifying, it was sort of like a, whoa, like, you know what I mean? It was like this high and low, and then, and so, but now, and then add on the uncertainty, and that was kind of just like a weird mindset where some people were saying like, whoa, congrats. And I'm like, thanks. Like, thank you. Like that's so, but now that it's like official and I'm away from Rio, we have the document in hand, like it's printed out, all that sort of stuff. It's now, I think over the next couple of days, I'll be like, like, I'm going to the show. Going to the Olympics, yeah.
Where are you going to be stationed for the next couple of months?
So that's a good question. I think that's, again, one of the beautiful things of having a quality, an event is that you don't think really beyond that. But now, the consequence of that is I'm like, I don't know actually what I'm going to be doing. So it really depends on just what the best training situation is with COVID rules, with, what availability is there, people to train with, coaches, all that. There's a lot of the stuff that goes into it. So either, not to mention the small thing of like my classes and exams and dissertations that I might need to be a small issue. So there's a chance I head back to the UK, and this, it really depends on whether I'm required to come back for the next term, and if there's a good training setup there, or I stay in the US. I've been done some training in Sarasota, down in Florida. I might do some, I know some rowers who are in Boston, and but it's really about trying to find a situation that I can continue making the gains that I was making in Florida, especially just that sort of environment that worked for me. But yeah, that's a very long-winded way of saying I have absolutely no idea, and a lot of things to figure out in terms of just the training environment, where I can go, all that sort of stuff, and what's allowed.
Exactly.
But we know what you're going to be doing at the end of July. When are your exams? When are your exams scheduled for?
Well, so actually, I have to email after this. I'm probably going to be emailing my director of studies because I have to let her know that, one, I've qualified, and two, I hope my exams don't fall during one of the World Cups, because that would be really unfortunate. So the exams are from May 15th to June 15th, or like and they'll be kind of sprinkled in there. But that's the period in which our exams and dissertations.
Your event is July 23rd to the 29th. That's when your actual year. So
yes,
you got some tough decisions to make, and
yeah, but I've always told myself that is a good problem to have. I would rather have that problem than be thinking, this is an easy, I just guess I go do my exams or something. So it's a very, very good problem to have.
Well, again, I am over the moon with the fact that you now get to live your dream. I know it hasn't been easy, but now that you've put yourself in a position to not only represent Bermuda, represent yourself and your family or your friends as well. I know they're all proud as Bermuda is of you and your accomplishment. So now the other work begins.
Yeah. Now it's like I spoke to my coach in Cambridge, and I said, I think I qualified. And he goes, great. He goes, well, how was the racing? I said, well, it was hard. It was pretty tough. And he goes, it wasn't tough. Like, you're going to find out what tough is. Like, he's like, this is not like, you think this is hard. Like, that's going to be another level. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
But what a great experience. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, what's good now is like, I've got the opportunity, I've got the shot, now I have I haven't done a regatta in a very long time. You just remember what it's like having to do all the processes and the this and then the buses and the recovery and the warm up and cool down and just kind of, and the fatigue and the, being smart about races. It's lessons have been learned from Rio of like, oh, okay, this is something you should work on. Like performance wasn't quite up to practice. You know what I mean? Like, okay, what are some takeaways we can have from this? We make sure that you are ready to go. What could be better to your mindset? How are you emotionally? How are you mentally? How are you physically? All that sort of stuff. This was, the trial run of sorts. And now I've got some like notes to say, okay, this happened. Now it's time to dig into why and work on it. So.
All right. Well, Madam President, I want to thank you for joining and congratulating Dara, as I know it was a surprise for him.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, we're very proud of you, and we've supported you through this journey, and we'll support you right the way through to the game. So I look forward to seeing you in Tokyo.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, no, it means so much to have that support.
No problem. All right. Yeah. Well, Dara, go get some rest.
Thank you so much. I think I'm going to sleep.
All right.
All the best. Talk soon.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.